What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. So, talking Cosmo Blazer again, and I'm not talking any fire support, I'm not talking Fire Fist, I'm not going to be talking about Fire Kings. I'm talking about a sea monster here that I found to be absolutely intriguing. Now, I think that this card, when I read it, I was just blown away. Like, I was astonished that Konami's giving out some really good win support, and I feel like as long as the info structure is there, this card is going to have a decent impact on the meta just because I read the effect, and it's just amazing in my opinion. So as long as Win gets the support that it needs and that I think is going to be dedicated, because you look at the previous sets and all the other attributes seem to be getting really good support. I feel like this card is going to make some small waves, at least some ripples. The card is called Lightning Plover. It's a Wind Thunder Sea monster, rank 4, 1900 attack, 1600 defense. Requires 2 level 4 wind monsters to summon. The effect reads as follows. When this card is successfully Exceed summoned, you can select one set card your opponent controls, return it to the bottom of the owner's deck. Also, once per turn, you can activate this effect by removing one Exceed material from this card, select one face-up monster your opponent controls, and return it to the top of the owner's deck. Okay, so the first effect is kind of like Ryza meets Grand Morgue in like a weird way, because you look at, if you know what your opponent has, like maybe they have that bluff MST, or you're playing a deck that bluffs a lot of cards like Dark World, you can summon this. Maybe your opponent has like a spell that's not chainable, spell speed 1 card, or an MST, but you don't have anything on the field, and it's like bam, you get to remove one of the resources from their field, spin it to the bottom of the deck. Chances are they won't see it again anytime soon. Or, even better, if your opponent simply has a set monster, they have like a Spirit Reaper, or, you're playing against Geargia and you know that they got that Geargia armor set, bam, spin it to the bottom of the deck. You're removing resources from your opponent's side of the field. The second effect is where it gets nuts. This is the optional one because the first one is trigger, obviously. This is the one where you simply detach and it's an out to any Synchro or Exceed monster. I like that because cards like Gachi, cards like Zen Mains are a pain in the butt. Even when you get your opponent to use that Login Negate, you're still staring down a 2400 monster. So, I mean, that's not something that I like dealing with. So, bam, you can just spin it to the top. Even better, let's say your opponent has, a relatively weak monster that they're trying to protect. Let's say your opponent has something like a Forbidden Lance and a Kabazai set, or a Forbidden Lance and a Guaiba. It's like, okay, summon this guy. Spin that Kabazai or Guaiba to the top of your deck, and bam, I can just, I have like a little mini lot going there where I can just attack you, and maybe you try and summon your guy next turn, and I'm like Bottomless, or, even with like cards like Bottomless and Warning, it's even better because let's say your opponent has that Hyperion or that BLS or that Chaos Sorcerer on the field, and you can't get around it because you drew the Bottomless afterwards. Well, now you can spin the monster to the top. Not only have you removed the threat from their field, but you've also mitigated their draw phase because they're essentially drawing into a card that they already have anyway. In addition, you have the out to that card. You're getting another opportunity to remove that card that you wouldn't have in any other situation outside of, potentially having like Compulse Evac device. So when I look at this card's dual effects, I'm like, they're both fantastic. Now, the stats are a little weak. It's only in the, Roach level, but I look at this card and I think, with 2 really good effects like that, I think that you definitely have a place. And, this card isn't as situational as a card like Roach because it's not like one of those, well, if I need to use the effect, I can do it. I mean, you're not going to summon this card unless you're going to go plus. And if you can go +2, it's just stupid. Like, let's say you spin your opponent's Spirit Reaper to the bottom of their deck, and then you end up bouncing like their Logia. I mean, do you know how ridiculous that is? You just removed basically their entire field. I mean, that's just stupid. Okay, so again, right now there is a kind of a shortage, a power outage on wind monsters, good level 4 wind monsters. I mean, you only got like 10 and stuff. The most optimal deck that I would throw this in right now would probably be Mist Valley, because you've got the Mist Valley Falcon, Mist Valley Soldier, and the BLASTFAN, and all 3 of those cards work in unison into like, Valley control. But outside of that, you really don't have a lot of options. But I do feel that you're going to see a big influx of good level 4 wind monsters if they're releasing stuff like this. And I don't know, I looked at this card, I saw the effects, and I was like, this card is nuts. So I just felt like I wanted to talk about it. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll talk to you later.